The typical brand new home in America is now worth 15% less than it was in the fall of 2022. That is $66,300 in paper losses for buyers who never missed a single payment. South Carolina's Grand Strand stretches 60 miles of white sand. Drive through any of the new subdivisions rising just off the coast, and the streets are clean, the lawns are managed, and the model home flags are still flying. But here is what they are not telling you. Today, we count down the 10 South Carolina cities where new construction has quietly become a financial trap, and builders are slashing prices to escape their own inventory. Number 1 may be the city you were told was the safest bet in the South. Subscribe now so you never miss the next housing warning. Drive south out of Charlotte on Interstate 77, and the state line arrives before you expect it. The subdivisions start almost immediately: fresh driveways, 2-car garages, brand new mailboxes that have never held a bill. This is Fort Mill. A decade ago, it was a quiet county town. Then the Charlotte real estate overflow started, and the builders never stopped coming. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. South Carolina now carries one in every 743 homes in the foreclosure process, the second highest rate in the entire country, according to Atom's April 2026 data. York County, where Fort Mill sits, is right inside that number. Fort Mill was built for one kind of buyer: Charlotte remote workers willing to trade commute distance for square footage and a lower price tag. Those buyers stopped coming when the return to office mandates arrived. According to Zonda's April 2026 New Home Market Update, 70% of American builders reported a market that moved slower than expected last spring. Fort Mill's builders felt every point of that. According to agents working the York County market, a growing number of buyers who closed on new construction here in 2022 are now watching the same floor plan sell 2 streets over, with $30,000 in closing cost assistance attached. Those early buyers cannot compete with that offer. They cannot price their resale below what a builder is offering new. If you bought here in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The national median for new construction peaked at $442,000 that fall, according to Fox Business and Century 21, Affiliated's May 2026. Reporting the typical new build is now worth 15% below that figure, a paper loss of $66,300 without missing a single payment. If you paid full price to escape the Charlotte market, how does it feel to watch the builder sell the same house for $60,000 less? 12 miles south of Fort Mill, Rock Hill spent decades as a mill town with a few colleges. Then the Charlotte overflow arrived here too. Construction flags went up in every cleared field on the edge of town. The same open concept layouts, the same granite countertops, the same promise of getting in before the market moved further out of reach. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. The National Association of Home Builders reported in April 2026 that 62% of American builders are currently offering buyer incentives. 62%. That is not a statistic from a healthy market. That is a number that has not been this high since June of 2008. The mechanics in Rock Hill work like this. The builder who sold your neighbor a home in Phase 1 is now unloading Phase 2 with closing cost packages worth up to $17,000. That is not a negotiation. That is a builder acknowledging quietly without a press release that the market will not absorb their inventory at full price. Fox Business reported that more than 1 in 3 builders, 37%, are actively cutting list prices in 2026, with average reductions around 5%. On a $400,000 home in the same community, that is a $20,000 discount to the buyer who waited. The buyer who did not wait is sitting with a home worth $20,000 less than what they paid for the privilege of being first. If you bought new construction in Rock Hill in 2022, here is what happened to your money. 15% below the national peak means $66,300 in paper losses on a $442,000 purchase. Rock Hill is not a market that is outperforming that number right now. The agents called it an affordable alternative to Charlotte. The foreclosure data is calling it something else. What would you call it? Head southeast toward the coast, and South Carolina becomes a different state entirely. The pine forests thin into Spanish moss and low country marsh. The May River comes into view. Bluffton sits in the corridor between Hilton Head Island and Savannah, a retirement destination that spent 20 years marketing itself as waterfront, living within reach of the middle class. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. The cost of owning a home in Bluffton is no longer what it says on the listing. According to Insurance.com's 2026 data, the average homeowner's insurance premium in Florida has crossed $7,562 per year. Coastal South Carolina's premiums are moving in the same direction. Some Bluffton homeowners are now carrying more than $600 per month in insurance alone on top of their mortgage, their HOA, and their property taxes. The new construction that went up along Bluffton's corridors during the pandemic years was priced for a buyer who expected normal insurance costs. That buyer does not exist at scale anymore. 62% of builders nationally are now offering rate buydowns and incentive packages just to move inventory, according to the National Association of Home Builders' April 2026 survey. Luxury builders in coastal retirement markets are not supposed to be doing that. A growing number of retirement buyers from the Northeast are pausing their Bluffton purchases or walking away from signed contracts, according to agents in the local market. They run the full monthly cost calculation mortgage insurance, HOA, and the number does not match the income they plan to retire on. If you bought new construction in Bluffton in 2022, here is what happened to your money. On a $500,000 coastal property, a conservative entry point for this market, a 15% decline from the peak means $75,000 in paper losses. That is more than most people on a fixed retirement income can absorb without changing their plans. How many months of $600 insurance payments does it take before the coastal dream stops feeling like a dream? Drive northwest out of Charleston for 30 minutes, and the city gives way to Summerville, the flower town in the pines. Azaleas in spring, live oaks lining the main streets, a downtown where the restaurants are still locally owned. The subdivisions that spread outward from its edges during the pandemic years looked like the rational choice for anyone priced out of Charleston proper. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Dorchester County, where Summerville sits now, has 1 in every 352 homes in the foreclosure process. That figure comes directly from Adams' first quarter 2026 Housing Impact Report. And it does not make Summerville the worst in South Carolina. It makes Dorchester County the third highest foreclosure rate of any county in the entire United States. Summerville absorbed an enormous wave of buyers between 2020 and 2023, people who stretched to get into the Charleston orbit before prices moved further. Those buyers locked in at the top. Now the builders still completing projects nearby are running 2-1 mortgage buy-down programs to clear inventory. The entering buyer gets a subsidized rate that can be $300 a month lower than yours. You got there first. They got a better deal. Across Dorchester County, a growing number of homeowners who purchased new construction between 2021 and 2023 are reporting their homes sitting on the market with no offers, competing directly against builder inventory that comes with incentives they cannot match. According to Housing Wire builder REO, repossessions surged 45% in the first quarter of 2026 nationally. The foreclosure surge here is not theoretical. It is already in the data. If you bought here in 2022, here is what happened to your money. Based on South Carolina's current trajectory and the national 15% decline from peak, a $400,000 purchase has lost approximately $60,000 in paper value. In a county where 1 in 352 homes is now in foreclosure, many of those owners are running a much harder calculation than paper losses. The third worst foreclosure rate of any county in America. Would that single number have changed your decision 3 years ago? If this is hitting close to home, hit subscribe. We cover these markets every week so you can stay ahead of what is coming. Northwestern South Carolina is different country from the coast foothills' crisp air in the morning, a skyline that somehow became genuinely impressive. Greenville's downtown revitalization is real. The Reedy River waterfall, the pedestrian bridge, the food scene that national magazines discovered a decade ago. BMW has a plant nearby. The story made sense, and for years, the market rewarded everyone who believed it. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. South Carolina's share of newly built home listings carrying price reductions now stands at 21.6%, placing it among the top 3 states in the country for new construction price cuts, according to a Realtor.com analysis published by Fortune in February 2026. Greenville, as the state's fastest-growing metro, built fast and built a lot during that boom. The homes arrived on schedule. The buyers did not. According to Zonda's April 2026 new home market update, 62% of builders are offering incentive packages, closing cost assistance rate, buy-downs, free upgrade packages to attract buyers who will sign. In Greenville, builders who were turning away interested parties 18 months ago are now negotiating on things they never negotiated on before. The market conversation has completely reversed. Fox Business reported in 2026 that new home prices have dropped to their lowest median level since 2021. For Greenville buyers who paid the 2022 premium on the strength of a boom city story, that headline is not abstract. They paid for the story is now selling at a markdown. If you bought new construction in Greenville in 2022, here is what happened to your money. 15% below the national peak of $442,000 is $66,300 in paper losses on a home that was supposed to be the sound investment in the South's strongest growth corridor. This was supposed to be South Carolina's boom city. So why are the builders here now, covering your closing costs just to get you to sign? Columbia sits in the center of the state, the capital, the college town, the government hub. It is the kind of city that does not make national real estate headlines, because nothing about it sounds extreme enough to click on. The new subdivisions on its northern and eastern edges went up during the boom years, and filled in quietly the way steady markets do. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. South Carolina now has the second highest foreclosure rate of any state in the country, according to Adams' April 2026, data 1 in every 743 homes. And Columbia's builder market is facing the same structural problem as every other South Carolina city on this list. There are now far more sellers than there are qualified buyers willing to close. The root cause in Columbia is straightforward. Government employees, university staff, and healthcare workers bought aggressively during the pandemic years, stretching their budgets on the assumption that rates would fall and their equity would grow. According to the National Association of Home Builders' April 2026 survey, 62% of builders nationally are now running incentive programs just to generate traffic. In Columbia, those incentives are competing directly against the resale listings of the buyers who came before them. According to Fox Business's 2026 reporting on builder pricing, the median new home price has dropped to its lowest level since 2021. For Columbia buyers who paid 2022 prices, that means the neighbor who bought new last month paid less for a brand new home than they paid 3 years ago for the same square footage. If you bought here in 2022, here is what happened to your money. At the national peak, the median new build was $442,000. 15% below that figure, the current national decline from peak, confirmed by Fox Business and Century 21. Affiliated is $66,300. On a state employee's salary, that number does not disappear quietly. At what point does competition between builders and existing sellers stop being a buyer's market and start being a warnings? Conway sits about 15 miles inland from the Grand Strand, connected to Myrtle Beach by Highway 501. Most people drive through it on the way to the beach. During the pandemic, a different kind of buyer showed up: investors from Ohio, New York, and Michigan, who read the rental income projections, saw the appreciation numbers, and bought new construction without visiting the property first. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. The short-term rental market that justified those purchases has changed. Horry County, which contains both Conway and Myrtle Beach, absorbed one of the largest concentrations of pandemic-era new construction in South Carolina. Now that inventory is competing with itself. According to Adams' first quarter 2026 Housing Impact Report, builder real estate-owned repossessions surged 45% nationally in the first quarter of 2026. Builders do not repossess homes in healthy markets. The vacation home investor model that drove Conway's new construction boom required three conditions to work short-term rental demand: staying high, appreciation continuing, and an exit buyer waiting on the other side. According to Zonda's April 2026 data, 70% of builders nationally reported slower sales than expected last spring. The exit buyers that out-of-state investors were counting on are not materializing. A growing number of investors who purchased Conway new construction between 2021 and 2023 are now reporting that their carrying costs, mortgage insurance, HOA property management exceed their rental income, according to agents working the Horry County market. They bought an investment. They are running an expense. If you bought new construction in Conway in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The 15% national decline from the 2022 peak represents $66,300 on a $442,000 purchase. For an out-of-state investor already running negative monthly cash flow, that paper loss is not an abstraction. They called it a vacation home investment. At what point does an investment become a liability you cannot exit? North Myrtle Beach is quieter than its southern neighbor, smaller crowds, more local flavor, the kind of place where retirees from the Mid-Atlantic said they would finally slow down. The new construction that went up here during the pandemic years was marketed as the more affordable, more livable version of the Grand Strand. Builders ran model home events on weekends, and the sales offices stayed busy. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. According to a February 2026 Grand Strand market analysis, builders across the North Myrtle Beach area are now advertising mortgage rate programs as low as 3.8%, financed through builder-subsidized buy-down packages. 3.8%. The current market rate sits above 6.5%. The gap between those two numbers tells you everything about how desperate builders are to move inventory. They are spending tens of thousands of dollars per sale just to put a buyer in the door. The mechanics are not complicated. When 62% of American builders are running incentive programs, according to the National Association of Home Builders' April 2026 survey, it means the market at unaided market rates has stalled. North Myrtle Beach's builders are not offering buy-downs because they want to. They are offering buy-downs because without them, nothing closes. According to the same February 2026 Grand Strand market report, builders in this area are accepting an average of 98.2% of list price, and then stacking closing cost assistance worth $3,000 to $17,000 on top of that. Every incentive paid out is a direct reduction in the value proposition for the buyer who bought the previous phase without those incentives. If you bought new construction in North Myrtle Beach in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The national 15% decline from the fall 2022 peak means $66,300 in paper losses on a $442,000 home. In a market where the builder down the road is advertising a rate that is 2.5 points below yours, selling at a price that recovers what you paid is not realistic right now. A 3.8% mortgage rate sounds like a deal until you understand that the builder is funding it, because nobody will buy at the rate you are carrying. Charleston is supposed to be different. The Battery, the Pastel Row houses Rainbow Row, reflected in the harbor at dusk. It is one of the most photographed cities in the American South. The premium market. The place that was supposed to hold its value because the demand never runs out. The new construction on the suburban fringes, James Island, Johns Island, the West Ashley Corridor, attracted buyers who wanted the Charleston address with the new home warranty. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Dorchester County. The county that holds Charleston's fastest-growing suburban expansion now carries one in every 352 homes in the foreclosure process. According to Adams' first quarter 2026 Housing Impact Report, that is the third highest foreclosure rate of any county in the United States. Not the third worst in South Carolina, the third worst in the country. Charleston's new construction buyers came from the Northeast and the Midwest during 2020 and 2022 remote workers who paid peak prices to land in a market they believed was permanently undersupplied. Then the return to office mandates arrived. Some are commuting back, others are trying to sell. Both groups are discovering that the inventory competing against them includes builder-incentivized new construction, with rate buy-down packages they cannot match. A growing number of Charleston area buyers who purchased new construction in 2021 and 2022 are now listing homes that have been on the market for 60, 90, 100 days with no offer, according to agents in the Lowcountry market. The premium they paid for the Charleston name is not converting into a premium at sale. If you bought new construction here in 2022, here is what happened to your money. On a $500,000 purchase, a realistic entry point for new construction in the Charleston corridor, the national 15% decline from peak means $75,000 in paper losses. In the third most foreclosure-distressed county in America, that paper loss has a harder edge than it does anywhere else on this list. The third worst foreclosure rate of any county in America. Is that the neighborhood your agent described when you signed the contract? Drive along the Grand Strand on a Tuesday morning in May, and the hotels are already filling up. The restaurants on Ocean Boulevard have a line by noon. The beach itself is everything they said it would be: 60 miles of white sand. The Atlantic running blue-green in the morning light, pelicans working the surf. The new communities rising just off the coastal strip have manicured entrances and flags flying at the model homes. On the surface, everything looks like it is working. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. According to Redfin's data for the 3 months ending April 2026, Myrtle Beach home prices have fallen 14.1% year over year. The median price has dropped to $232,000 a figure. That would have been unthinkable to the buyers who signed contracts here in 2022 and 2023. And the builders who are still selling in this market are now advertising mortgage rates as low as 3.8% through subsidized buy-down programs, according to a February 2026 Grand Strand market analysis. 3.8. Because at 6.5%, the phones are not ringing. South Carolina carries the second highest foreclosure rate of any state in the country, 1 in every 743 homes, according to Adams' April 2026 data. Nationally, foreclosure filings rose 26% in the first quarter of 2026 compared to 1 year prior, also per Adam. And builder real estate-owned repossessions homes that went back to the bank surged 45% in that same period. Myrtle Beach is not immune to any of those numbers. It is generating some of them. The people who got hurt worst here are the investors. Between 2020 and 2023, out-of-state buyers from the Midwest and the Northeast purchased new construction in Horry County at peak prices, running projections based on short-term rental income and continued appreciation. According to agents working the Grand Strand market, a growing number of those investors are now trying to exit, simultaneously listing their properties into a market where the builder across the street is offering a rate buy-down worth $40,000 in effective subsidy. A private seller cannot win that negotiation. If you bought new construction in Myrtle Beach in 2022, here is what happened to your money. According to Redfin's April 2026, market data prices here have dropped 14.1% in 12 months. On a $450,000 purchase, a conservative estimate for new construction at the Grand Strand peak, that is $63,500 gone on paper. Not from a bad decision, not from missing a payment, simply from buying in a market that was running on assumptions that did not survive contact with 2026. 14.1% down in a year. The builder is offering you a subsidized rate. The investor next door is trying to sell. The foreclosure data is climbing. So who exactly is this market working for right now? 10 cities, one pattern. Every market on this list was built for a buyer who no longer exists at the scale required to absorb the inventory. The remote worker who would commute from Fort Mill. the retiree who would stop worrying about insurance costs in Bluffton, the investor who would run profitable short-term rentals out of Conway, the Charleston transplant who would never need to return to an office. These were not unreasonable assumptions in 2021. They became catastrophic ones by 2026. South Carolina's new construction boom was built on three beliefs: that mortgage rates would fall, that remote work would last, and that buyers would keep arriving. All three of those beliefs are now gone. And the homes are still here, sitting in subdivisions with manicured entrances and flags at the model homes and sales offices that open every weekend for anyone who wanders in. Here is the part that does not get reported. The builder who sold you a home in Phase 1 is still on the same street. He is not rooting for your property value. He is selling Phase 2 at a price that undercuts yours, with a rate buy-down your monthly payment cannot compete with to a buyer who will be your neighbor. The person most actively working against your home's resale value right now is not the market. It is the builder whose sign is still at the entrance to your subdivision. That is the trap that nobody put in the brochure. The warning signs were always there. The question is, were you watching? This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or real estate advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making any investment decisions. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your city in the comments below.